everyone, welcome to another episode of NRI She-roes. Today we are thrilled to have Kinjal, the founder of Chiffon and Spice, a Bay Area based clothing brand known for its unique fusion of tradition and modernity. Let's dive into her incredible journey. Hi Kinjal, it's fantastic to have you on NRI She-roes. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Kinjal, can you share a bit about your background? Where did you grow up? And what drew you to fashion?
Sure, yeah. So I was born in India and born in Baroda in Gujarat.
Okay.
And I came to Queens, New York when I was about 2 years old.
Wow.
My family, a part of the first generation of immigrants, they
Mhm.
came here. And I spent about 12 years of my life, 10 to 12 years in New York City.
Mhm.
And then we came to the Bay Area.
And what led you to fashion?
I was always interested in fashion. I would say always interested in what people wore, how they wore it, how they styled it. But because we were first generation immigrants, there was a lot of pressure, I think, to make it, to not have the same hardships as our parents had, and hence to do something that was more practical in nature, you know.
Okay.
So the pragmatic way to go was not fashion or
Mhm.
not something that was very creatively
Mhm.
inclined. But I was always very into, aesthetics and how to put things together. And I think it really shone through when my family would take childhood trips to India.
Wow.
I would go to the tailors and I would go to the fabric shops and have my drag my mom with me even though she wasn't interested. So yeah, I think it was kind of born there.
Mhm.
I was always kind of inclined creatively towards fashion, but never really did anything with it.
Okay. I have been following Chiffon and Spice on Instagram and I'm genuinely interested. I've noticed that in a lot of the designs, there is a blend of Indian and Western elements, right? Is that a conscious thought or is that something it happened organically?
No, it's a very conscious thought actually. When Chiffon and Spice was just a thought that I had, I always wanted to build something that was a part of two identities that I sort of related to
Mm-hmm.
and grew up with. And a lot of it was my Indian upbringing. My parents brought me up in a very Indian household. We were actually not even allowed to speak English in
Wow.
the house. My mom and dad thought it would be very important for us to learn Gujarati, which is
Mm-hmm.
our native tongue, and that inevitably we'd learn English outside. So I was very connected to that. We'd see friends and family regularly. It was a very I would say a very Indian, like very rooted household
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. So it's something that I hold very dearly to me, not the religious part of it, but more of the cultural part of
Mm-hmm.
it and how I grew up. I loved Indian food, Indian cultural celebrations, and of course the fashion. And then of course I was an American. So I grew up here, so which meant that we were mostly in jeans and t-shirts and sweatshirts, and
Right.
we didn't really wear our ethnic clothes until it was time to celebrate Navratri or Diwali or
Right.
something that we were going to someone's house for a puja. But yes, the Indo-Western thing is very conscientious because I hold both parts of my identity very dear to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I love both sides coming out in the designs.
Amazing. When did you start this brand?
It started at the very end of 2018. And then in the beginning of 2018, I kind of started thinking about what I wanted to do, and it was as a result of me having my firstborn actually in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
After which I went through some postpartum depression,
Okay.
and it was kind of like a journey of finding myself and what I really wanted to achieve that perhaps I hadn't before I
Mm-hmm.
had kids.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught me a lot. Being a mom taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the happiest, but also the most empty inside, if you will, phase of life. And so when I really started thinking about what it is I wanted to do, I always came back to being creatively very inclined to do something. Like I said, styling, aesthetically putting things together, fashion was a big one. But I never knew what exactly, how I would exactly put it into place now that I was a mom and I had obviously less time to.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, the circumstances that led to the chiffon and spice. I mean, that's amazing. Chiffon and spice is also a very unique name. So, what's the story behind this name?
Yeah, and there's quite a story actually. So chiffon comes from, I grew up watching Hindi movies. It was always, my dad was a big ghazal listener. So
Wow.
we used to play all sorts of ghazals in the evening. And then there would also be the movies. And he used to watch pretty much everything and encourage us to learn Hindi also. So I'm fluent in both Gujarati
Okay.
and Hindi,
Okay.
even though I grew up here. So I think what resonated with me the most is, Yash Chopra's movies and how the actresses were in these flowing chiffon saris.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the first memories that I had of fashion that kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
The fluidity of the fabrics and how the actresses would look so. It was funny because they looked ethnic, but they looked also very contemporary and very happy. And they would be, like, it was just a very, I guess it was attached to a very happy time also in my life,
Okay.
when my dad was very healthy and he was, he would encourage us to kind of connect with our culture through film.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where chiffon comes from. It's one of my favorite fabrics to date.
Okay.
We don't make too much in chiffon,
Okay.
ironically enough, because it's a harder fabric to work with unless it's like a plain chiffon sari.
Mm-hmm.
But spice actually comes from, my dad was always in the spice business. I remember every time he came home, he smelled like spices. So you're always around spices, and an Indian household is not complete without a masala dabba.
Right.
So I think, when I think of chiffon and spice, it makes so much sense because it's so dear to me, and like in the words that it encompasses,
Mm-hmm.
but also chiffon being the delicate nature and the nostalgic elements from my childhood,
Mm-hmm.
and spice being kind of like the more like edgy, that Western part that kind of
Mm.
adds a very different and kind of like zing to the designs.
Nice. Lovely how names can convey so much about a brand's identity. My next question to you is building a brand from scratch is not easy. It's not like a 9 to 5 job. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you initially started? And were there any moments where you thought, I cannot do this anymore. Let's just shut it.
Yeah, there was a lot of moments like that. So when I started, I think the biggest challenge was, I was a fairly new mom,
Mm-hmm.
so the time limitations were huge. I've always worked full time.
Okay.
So my background is in healthcare administration and finance, and I actually have my master's in that field. So I
Okay.
think it was hard for me to let go of all of that and just start something, and it still is. I still work full time, and this was kind of a side hustle, if you
Okay.
will, and it still is. So I think the time limitations were the hardest. I think the other part was that I did not want to create something that was shabby in quality. I think Indo-Western is one thing, but translating that vision to my workshops, who I had to work really hard to find
Mm-hmm.
overseas in India, was very tough because I would get, translate something. And even with my Hindi being fairly good,
Mm-hmm.
they would understand it in some way because they're not used to making Indo-Westerns. And now a lehenga or a suit or sari, they're very used to making
Right.
those silhouettes. But my silhouettes were different, and they still are. I still struggle with that, to translate that over, to test it first, have it come to me wear it and feel very comfortable in that design, and convince me that other people will want to wear it as well. So it was a lot of that testing that was very difficult. And I went through several vendors that did not work out because of that reason. I was wiped at the end of the day, right? Because I was in a working full time job. I have a newish baby. I'm
Yeah.
still trying to figure things out with motherhood. So I think that those were some of the challenges. The quality of the pieces. I never wanted to create something, like I said, that was shabby in quality. And I would get things back that were really not something that I would wear, much less sell. So I think that was really tough, that piloting period, because I was pouring so much money into it and I was still not seeing something that I was satisfied with.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes, just beating myself up over it. I'm not translating it properly. This is just not working out. Maybe we should switch gears. So there was a lot of that.
And how did you tell yourself that, okay, no, I have to do this? What motivated you to keep going?
Yeah, I would say it was always being creatively inclined. It was my family. My husband is very supportive and encouraging, and I am a firm believer. believer that I don't think that you can do it with an unsupportive partner.
That's true.
Whether a husband or whoever it is by your side. I think that that for me was very very inspiring. He always when I'm down, he's there. When I'm in high spirits, he's there. And so that was very important. I don't think I could do this without him by my side. But I think also my son, I wanted to show him that women can,
Absolutely.
have it all.
Yeah.
Now, while I don't believe that there's such a thing as balance,
Mhm.
I think that, in certain phases of your life, one thing that you're doing may need you more.
Yeah.
But I do think that if it really means something to you, that you can do it all. So I think it was setting an example to him and still is, right? And so, like, when I make my reels for Instagram, which I absolutely like, I'm very shy in front of the camera still,
Okay.
and despise doing, he's like, but Mama, look at how many views it got. And look at how that was, that's a good feeling.
Amazing. So you mentioned you were working full time before 2018, and in 2018 you started this business, and then you started it like full time.
Yeah, and so I was working, I pretty much worked, I finished my master's in about 2006.
And where
And
did you pursue your master's from?
and
NYU. Okay.
yeah, so I was at NYU. So I went, from New York to the Bay Area, moved with my parents, and then went back to New York.
Mhm.
And then I met now spouse there, and so we were doing DC to New York for a
Oh,
while.
wow.
So I worked a little bit in New York. I did a lot of internships while I was in school,
Mhm.
and then I moved back here, and then both of us got jobs here in the Bay.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just been like full, circle.
Um, so, Kinjal, many aspiring women entrepreneurs, they often face difficulties when starting a business. As you also mentioned that you were a new mom when you started out. And obviously women also have a lot of other responsibilities as well. Like as a woman, you are a wife. There are so many other things to handle. What's one critical piece of advice you wish you had known when you started your
Business or life, I think it's you cannot do it all, and you should not.
That's such valuable insight.
Yeah, I think that's still it still resonates.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of pressure as women that you have to be perfect in every area, but it's high time I think we realize that it's not fair to give ourselves that pressure because
Absolutely.
it's just not fair. Yeah.
To anybody.
Yeah, exactly. My next question is for those looking to start their own ventures, especially in a competitive market like the Bay Area, what's one lesson you have learned that could be valuable to them?
I would say get used to failure, and become very comfortable with it,
Mm-hmm.
and think of it as a learning experience and move forth. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think failure, whenever you start something new, any venture, is just inevitable. No matter how much you know about the topic, right, around which you're starting your venture,
Mm-hmm.
and who
Mm-hmm.
there's bound to be things that don't work out well, and so I think getting comfortable with that, but also knowing that in those failures ultimately help you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one piece of advice that I would give.
Is there
Humble
any
piece of advice.
is there any particular instance in your life or from your business do you want to share where you thought like you are failing at something and then you were like no, okay, I have to get out of this, and then you did? Is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of times where, the designs that I made sat on the shelves for a long time.
Okay.
And especially initially,
Mhm.
right? Because I don't think I'm a very great marketer.
Mhm.
So I was shy to get it in front of the camera and do my own reels for social media.
Okay.
And so the designs resonated with me, and I think that they would have sold faster if I marketed them well.
Mhm.
But it's something that I really struggled with, and I think still struggle with. I think
Okay.
I would do a lot better if I was more comfortable getting out there and confident in my, in what I created. And so I think I did struggle with that because it was something that I thought would never sell. But now we're into our fifth-ish year. Not, maybe the pandemic was a little bit of a wash, but those same designs and our new ones are selling out.
Wow.
Right? And I'm having to tell people that I'm sorry, I just can't offer that fabric anymore or that design for whatever reason. But so it's a nice feeling. So, but I kind of had to dig myself out of it, and a lot of it was just talking to fellow small business owners too, who had kind of were going through the same walks of life. I would say many of my good friends now are fellow female entrepreneurs
Wow.
as well, because we met at a part of our journey and kind of connected over the fact that these are our struggles, and then they're so motivating and they say great things, and things like you're so inspiring, and I would, why don't you do this, or why don't you do it that way, this is what you're doing great. So that kind of helps build you a little bit.
Amazing. I also have to ask, fashion is very dynamic, right? It constantly changes. So how do you balance staying ahead of trends and the competition as well? Because every like fashion is really fast paced. So
Yes.
what happens there?
I don't think that, you need to follow every single trend that comes out there. I mean,
Okay.
personally, the things that I see on the fashion ramp,
Mhm.
like I'm like, I would never
Never
wear
wear.
those things,
Yeah.
right? And those are trends, those are fashion trends. But then there's other things where you see a trend, or at least I see a trend, and I feel like this would be really cool to fuse with an ethnic, like something like bandhani or Lucknowi chicken curry, right? So I think there are times when you use trends to your favor if it if it's palatable for you, and then there's other times where you just don't you don't follow. But yeah, I've done both, right? I mean, like I said, if it resonates with me and it's something that is palatable for me, I'll do it, and if not, it's a pass.
Okay, I see. Nice. Looking back at your journey, what do you hope women, particularly those from diverse backgrounds like us, take away from your journey and your story?
I would say that question things, right? A lot of the reason why I started my brand is when I was younger, growing up in New York. Back in those days, it wasn't South Asians were not very mainstream. It's not like it is right now, where you
Right.
see South Asians on TV, representation on media. It wasn't very common, and I didn't see too many people that looked like me, even in a melting pot like New York, because it was a melting pot for a lot of other cultures, but still not for South Asians. And I think I became comfortable with being different. And I would probably say, to future entrepreneurs or someone who wants to pursue something that's close to their heart, it could be anything, it doesn't have to be fashion. But I would say now it's about what sets you apart and makes you different. Back when we were in grade school or high school, in junior high school, it was about kind of blending in. Back in those days, especially when I was growing up, you used to be more, encouraged to just blend, just follow. So you won't be made fun of, or
Right.
you won't stand out in a way that makes you look, God forbid, different. But I think that difference and the viewpoints, like how we think, how we, for me, it's when I'm running, right? It's meditative for me, and that's when I think of my designs. That's when I think this would be so cool to see, or I saw this somewhere. Let me make it my own by fusing it with these different elements, right? But if I didn't think like that, I would just be thinking in a box. So I would highly encourage someone to ask, what makes you different, and how can that difference really shine through?
It's funny when we are younger, we always want to fit in. And as we grow up, we realize that, okay, the thing that we were trying to hide from people is what makes us unique, is what makes us special. So
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people would resonate with that story for sure. Are there any specific women in fashion or business who have inspired you or influenced your approach to your work?
In fact, Anita Dongre, Sabyasachi, South Asian designers for sure. Totally my jam.
Okay.
Women in business, and probably like in like a celebrity, Priyanka Chopra,
Wow.
huge
Yeah.
inspiration,
Yeah.
right? Her walk of life and what she's achieved. And I think just how she's brought South Asians into more of a mainstream life
Absolutely agree.
has been incredible. Mindy Kaling, I would say.
Yes.
You know, I have been watching her through the office days and
Mhm.
prior, but her writing is just immaculate. She's got such good comic timing. So she would definitely be not in fashion, but on TV.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so many, there's countless others, right? And there's so many, I would say South Asian women for sure, because I think they've had to break barriers.
Absolutely. What, according to you, sets Chiffon and Spice apart from other brands in the Bay Area or in the US?
So there's so many brands out there, right? And so many great ones and
Mhm.
Indo-Western ones that are doing amazing things.
Right.
I would say quality.
Okay.
Our quality, I have to say that I've worked very hard to
Mm-hmm.
to line everything a certain way, make it comfortable, make it something that's very wearable. It's not casuals, I will say that. So if you, even our shorts are meant to be worn more semi-formally,
Okay.
if you will. Our short rompers are meant to be worn to like a mehndi where you don't want to wear something that's long that you have to keep pulling up
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So I think that the quality sets us apart. Obviously, the designs, right? I mean,
Right.
there are things on our page and things that I can share with you that are truly that have never been seen before.
I've seen the blazers and the print on them is very Indian traditional print,
Yeah.
but those are like very formal looking
Yeah.
blazers, and I love those.
Mhm.
I saw that on your Instagram page.
Yeah. So even with something like a blazer, we strive to not make it just a very common blazer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll add things, right? Like we'll add our signature logo or
Mhm.
piece of our logo that
Mhm.
makes it very unique to us. Or we'll put pleats in places that you would not expect, like on our tuxedo inspired sari set,
Wow.
right? That's, always coming up with different elements so that you might have seen something like it somewhere, but it's very fused to where there's so many different elements
Hmm.
that set it apart.
How do you come up with these designs? Like, do you take inspiration from magazines or like what is the process? I really want to
Mhm.
understand.
That's a lot of, I mean, I love to window shop also, so
Okay.
I love to style and put myself together, and then just observation. I'm a big traveler, so
Okay.
even going somewhere, and it doesn't even have to be traveling overseas, but just going out to a coffee shop and observing what someone is wearing.
Right.
It could be media, something that inspires that you see. And so it's trends and designs that I see that gaps in my closet sometimes, like, man, I wish I had something like this. I'll make it. Right now, it's like I'll make it. If I don't find something like it on the market, and if I don't have it, but I envision it, I'm like, let's test it out and make something. So it's a many different inspirations, I think.
And how much time does like one piece would take for from envisioning to execution to like artisans making it?
It depends because there's a lot of testing that goes into it in some pieces. Like shorts and jumpsuits are always really hard. Pants are hard because
Okay.
of the measurement. Everybody's different, right? Everybody's shaped differently. So those are tougher. So those take more testing. And I don't like the first piece ever being sold unless it's perfect. And rarely is it ever perfect because, like I said, Indo-Western is very hard to translate. So I like first, prototyping, right? If there's something similar that I see in the market, we'll use that as a prototype and then add our own touches to it.
Mhm.
And then a test piece will come to me within maybe like 5, 6 weeks it'll take. And then I'll say, okay, yes or no. And then if it's a no, then another like
Another
at least three,
iteration.
4 maybe weeks to do
Okay.
it. And then it comes and hopefully the second or maybe the third time it's correct. Right.
Okay.
And then we'll start making more.
Hmm.
But we've never mass produced pieces. Our
Okay.
pieces are single or small batch pieces.
Okay.
So we do a lot of custom orders now
Okay.
also
Okay.
because there was such an appreciation over the designs. But there's people who like sleeves on something. They want to make it more modest.
Mhm.
Indo-Western doesn't necessarily mean revealing, right?
Right.
They want to add sleeves or they want to make it longer.
Hmm.
And we are totally all for that. So we offer a lot of customizations.
Okay. So people can find Indo-Western outfits. You also offer lehengas as well, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like what other options are there for outfits?
Yeah, so there's lehengas, there's suits, there's sets, palazzos, and crops or longer peplum tops. There's dresses, lots of blazers are in demand right now. But we'll always try to fuse and say, that we'll get orders for a lot of dresses actually.
Mhm.
And when it's a dress, something like a dress, we'll always say, how can it be worn as a dress, but also as a suit?
Mhm.
Right? So we do a lot of like, you can wear this as a short dress or a midi dress, but you can also put a legging on the bottom and wear it with a dupatta.
Okay.
So you can wear it a bunch of different ways. And I really am big on versatility, especially since we strive to make sure quality
Of course.
is better. That, someone doesn't necessarily only wear it once or twice, right? They
Mhm.
can style it different ways and make different combinations.
So, do you only offer women clothing as of now, or do you have any plans to offer men's clothing as well?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, it's only women's
Okay.
ready to shop and custom.
Okay.
I've done custom for friends and family for their husbands or men. There's a huge demand for menswear, but I don't do it ready to shop quite yet in the boutique.
Okay.
I haven't really perfected it. It's something where I want to become more familiar with men's clothing first
Mhm.
and research it before I just step into it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would be very likely to do that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that there are not a lot of options for men specifically in Bay Area because whenever there is a function or there's a festival, my husband is always struggling to find
Yeah.
traditional clothes. There are a lot of options for me. I can
Mhm.
buy a lot of stuff for myself, whether it's a sari or a dress, traditional dress.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of demand for men's wear in
Yeah.
traditional wear, especially.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
think that
I
would be
mean,
very interesting.
yeah, we would love to get into that space.
Yeah. I have another question. For aspiring fashion entrepreneurs, what skills or qualities do you believe are essential for success in this industry?
I think developing a strong spine
Yeah.
because, like I said, there's always something that's been done in
Mhm.
fashion, So, yes, coming up with something unique is always the case for me. Like, I strive to do it for sure. Okay, this has never been seen before. But, fashion it's also cyclical, right? It's something that you saw maybe like someone like Mumtaz wearing in an old movie, right? It's coming back now.
Hmm.
Or, like Zinataman wore bell bottoms, or, something in an older movie that's more contemporary that you make even more contemporary, or you add more modest touches to it, right?
Hmm.
So I would say, yes, come up with something different, but also know that fashion is cyclical and there's certain elements that, you definitely use again and don't feel like, you have to come up with something like absolutely original every time because there's only so much sometimes that you can do, right? So
Has being an entrepreneur changed you in certain way? Like, what is the difference between Kinjal of 2018 and Kinjal of 2024 after like 5 years in business? So, how do you think like being an entrepreneur has changed?
a lot of the things that happen in my brand, within my brand, and what I'm showcasing is controlled by me. So I do like the control in a lot of different parts of my life. I like having that. So here I can have the control over it, right? So I think that confidence that I've built is through my brand. And if I hadn't started it, I would never know, right?
Wow.
So there's no regrets now. Whereas the Kindle of 2018, there was like a lot of worry and anxiety, and there still is as an entrepreneur. There
Yeah.
always is, right? But I think that it comes with I've done this, and I've done it before, and it's worked out so well, right? So there's that now horizon that opens up where you've proved yourself to yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, you can give yourself that talk. Okay, I've done that before, and I can do it now. So
Yes.
yeah, that's important. Would you say you was more sensitive before, and now you are more what do I say? Strong? Maybe strong is not the right word.
I'm still sensitive. I am stronger. I'm definitely stronger when it comes to hearing feedback about the designs. I've
Yeah.
always, I think, put feelers out to people and ask them, whether it's friends or family, or, like they probably would lie, right? And say, it's great, everything's great, you're
Right.
doing an amazing job. But I think I've been stronger and asking, like I said, fellow small business owners or, someone who I really trust. Like my husband will always tell me, right? How
Open
it
to
is.
constructive criticism.
Yeah, yeah, so I've become open to that for sure over time.
Nice. Do you have any future plans or upcoming projects for Chiffon and Spice that you're excited about?
Yeah, I would say our e-commerce website. It's something that
I was about to mention that.
yeah, something because there, and fortunately, there has been a lot of good demand around our designs.
Mhm.
So now I want to offer more pieces. First, I was very worried about making too much, and I
Mhm.
still won't make too much. I've
Mhm.
always stood by that because I think when you make unlimited volume of things, your quality is bound to suffer,
Right.
right? So I don't want to make too much ever. So I still want to do a lot of custom pieces where we're making it especially for a client. They'll definitely use it, right? So it's not going into the landfill. Wastage really worries me, right?
Mm.
Especially with Indian clothes, the trends are going in and out
Yeah.
every day, more so in India than here. But so I think our e-commerce site is really exciting because I'll be able to offer more sizes also to
Mm.
people that have been like, do you do plus sizes, right? And I would love to offer it, but that translating that over to my workshops has not necessarily been easy. But now, because I really want to offer that to the clients where there's a demand, I'll be able to offer that. And yeah, and a lot of our pieces, like a lot of our best sellers, I'll make more of those because I know that there's an appreciation and a demand around that.
Awesome. Outside of business, what else do you like to do?
So much. I just had a friend telling me today, like, you like to do so much. I'm a big foodie.
Okay.
So I love to try different foods, and if there's a new restaurant, I'm always telling my husband, let's go out and try it. Travel is a big one for me. I've been to about now 45 or so, nearly 50 countries.
Wow.
Actually, and it's something that we continue doing with our boys. So I've been doing it since before the Instagram times, right?
Wow.
Where I would actually paste photos into scrapbooks, and
Wow.
that's why Instagram reels and stuff so fun,
Mhm.
to see people do now because it's a whole new level,
Mhm.
right? But I started like with like collecting sand and pebbles from places and putting it on, in a piece on a piece of sticking it on a piece of paper. So yes, I would say I'm a runner. So
Okay.
I've done a lot of half marathons and 3 full marathons.
Wow.
I don't do as much of it anymore as I would like because life has become so busy. But it's always something that when I do, it brings me a lot of joy and peace.
Mm.
I do yoga. I meditate when I can. I love to cook, and again, life has taken a turn for the best way for me. Satisfying in a lot of ways, but it leaves me less time to do these things. But yeah.
Okay, now coming to rapid fire, I'll ask you 5 questions and you have to answer it very quickly. Okay.
I
So
hope there's numbers.
I have invited you for dinner already. So
Okay, that's
okay, heels or flats?
flats. Flats.
Okay, if you weren't in fashion, you would be a.
Fashion was my thing. So
Okay, who's your style icon?
Priyanka Chopra, I think she's always immaculately dressed. Her stylist does a great job.
Yeah, yeah. One piece of clothing you cannot live without.
Pajamas.
Yeah, that's right, actually. I never thought about it. I was thinking, oh, what would she answer? I was like, that's so
Yeah.
true.
And dresses. I love a good dress.
Yeah.
But pajamas.
Yeah,
For sure.
pajamas for sure, yeah. Okay, chiffon and spice in one word. How would you describe it?
Modern.
Modern. Okay. So yeah, I think that was all. Thank you so much, Kinjal, for sharing your journey and your valuable insights with us today. It was great having you here, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners gained a lot from your story. To all our listeners, make sure you follow Chiffon and Spice on Instagram. And stay tuned for more inspiring stories on NRI She-roes podcast. Until next time, bye bye.